In the domain of Apocalypse, the deadly assassin Domino and her two underlings Grizzly and Caliban accost Forge. She demands to know where the telepath is, so Forge drops a flash grenade and runs off, buying himself a moment of time. But he loses sight of Essex in the process. He runs and finds Toad and Mastermind, asking after Nate Gray and knowing they are all in danger. In a bid to buy them some time, Mastermind creates an illusion of Apocalypse that attacks Domino, but she quickly sees through this and vaporizes Mastermind with a single blast from her weapon. Forge is only saved by the timely arrival of X-Man, who unleashes his still-developing powers on Domino. Nate is powerful, and it pushes Domino in a way few others have, but she considers herself the world's greatest assassin for a reason, and is able to use her luck powers to knock the powerful young boy down. Meanwhile, Toad duels Caliban, besting the attacker and killing him, only to be murdered by Grizzly immediately after. Forge and Sonic angrily and brutally kill Grizzly in revenge. This catches Domino's attention for a moment, giving Nate the opportunity to seize her with his telekinesis. Full of rage, Nathaniel begins to peel away at her mind, burning through her memories, a lifetime of murder, until there is nothing left. In the aftermath, Forge and X-Man embrace, relieved to see each other and quickly affirming their shared love as father and son. Nate Gray admits he hasn't been listening to Forge as much as he should have been, and they agree that X-Man needs more time before he is ready to face Apocalypse. Forge says he is proud of Nate, that knowing your limits is one of the hardest parts of growing up. As the makeshift family prepare to leave, Forge then finds Brute murdered by Essex. He confronts the stranger on the matter, and Essex eagerly welcomes a fight. Nearby, Nathan is suddenly struck by an unsettling feeling thanks to his psychic bond with Forge. He rushes off, only to find his adoptive father dying before him. Forge's life flashes before the young telepath's eyes as his father passes away, and Nate sees how Essex betrayed them. Forge says he is sorry, that he only wishes they could have had more time together, and instructs his boy to find Magneto. An explosion of power rings out from Nathan in his grief. Essex appears and says he is impressed, ready to begin their work. X-Man lashes out against him, which only serves to destroy Sinister's disguise. Now revealed, Mr. Sinister promises his creation all the answers the boy could want. Across the world, a young woman named Gwen Stacy walks among the ruins of Wakanda. She remembers a golden land that once stood here, but it's all gone now. Gwen delivers aid to the starving masses living here and comforts a boy who cries over his sick mother. All of a sudden, an explosion rocks the land, and the boy she held mere moments ago is violently killed. A group of freelance human terrorists, tolerated by Apocalypse only for the damage they do to the human world, arrive on the scene. They are called the Marauders, composed of Wilson Fisk and Norman Osborn, two wealthy individuals from the States that bought their way into this group. There is also an assassin only known as Arcade, and a mysterious figure called the Owl. They attack the people living here, and in a desperate move, Gwen manages to shoot Fisk dead. The surviving Marauders are all violently killed when a cargo vessel piloted by Tony Stark and Clint Barton arrives on the scene. Gwen greets them and is soon joined by Dr. Donald Blake. Tony states Donald is needed back in England. There, a terrifying sight is in the skies this evening. An armada of mutant vessels have returned, with such a thing not seen in these skies since these ships cut a bloody path through Europe and the rest of the world during Apocalypse's first round of brutal slaughter inflicted on the human race years ago. Susan Storm watches this unfold nervously, thinking of how her brother Johnny and romantic partner Reed died in those days. She talks with her current partner Ben Grimm, and both are skeptical that any sort of peace can be reached with Apocalypse. Nevertheless, Mikhail, the forgotten horseman of Apocalypse, has apparently come here for that exact purpose. On board their ship, Mikhail's subordinate, an augmented human named Matt Murdock, confirms that the humans are stockpiling nuclear weapons, but Mikhail was already well aware of that. He's also been informed that their nuclear targeting systems have been completely destroyed, and is eager to bring some changes to the world. While they are flying a ship, Ben and Sue are nearly killed by an explosion that wipes out any remaining human that would have been able to pilot vessels capable of delivering nuclear bombs to Apocalypse's territories. Realizing the human race no longer has any means to retaliate against Apocalypse, the two investigate the area, where they are attacked by the Hulk. Bruce Banner is behind this, having agreed to become his alter ego in a bid to survive in Apocalypse's world. Sue is able to sneak up behind the Hulk and badly wounds him by shooting him in the back of the head. The Hulk stumbles away, transforming back into Bruce Banner, who the two find bleeding from his wound. Victor Von Doom greets Mikhail on behalf of the Human Council. With him, Mikhail speaks to a large crowd of humans, offering them relief from the endless war under a new nation he will protect, where humans and mutants can live together in unity. He offers aid to humanity in the form of food, water, and clothing, inviting representatives of the Human Council to come on board his flagship to prove he has nothing to hide. Doom, Stark, Gwen Stacy, Donald Blake, Bruce Banner, Ben Grimm, and Sue Storm all agree to go on board. As the crowd below reaches a frenzy of support for Mikhail's new plans, on board his ship, the Horseman is revealed to have a mutant named Empath he has been tortuously using to manipulate the masses below. Elsewhere, Weapon X pulverizes two cyborgs that work for Apocalypse. These augmented humans guard the entrance to a facility in the now devastated Wundagore Mountain. Logan gives pause at this site, as it was once the home to the X-Men before Apocalypse destroyed it, and where they lost Wanda. Weapon X quickly detects that he is being watched, and Carol Danvers is indeed behind him. Carol has been stationed here guarding the very reason Logan has come, but nevertheless she agrees to take him up a tall and lonely tower to the mutant she has been taking care of. Back in London, the High Human Council eagerly awaits news of Logan's mission. He is their last hope now, as he seeks the only remaining chance they have to fire the nuclear missiles. Weapon X is brought to Gateway, a mutant with the ability to teleport, and angrily confronts him, demanding he help destroy Apocalypse's domain. Gateway is able to use his powers to read Logan's memories, yet still declines to help deliver the human's payload of nuclear weapons, viewing it as an extreme act of violence he wants no part of. Gateway is more interested in preserving every bit of human knowledge he can, but soon Apocalypse's forces close in on their location and attack. Carol is forced to sacrifice herself to save Logan and Gateway, and the two flee the area in a plane. Gateway asks to be taken to the Human Council. Though he hasn't agreed to anything yet, he is at least willing to hear them out now, clearly moved by Carol's heroism and Logan's determination. At the core facility, Colossus and his team successfully break into the labor camp run by the fearsome and deadly Sugar Man. This villain nearly catches Colossus' students as they are freeing Ileana from her imprisonment. Meanwhile, out in space, Gambit and the Externals observe an impossibly large device built around a planet the Starjammers have brought them to. The mad empire of the Shi'ar, known as D'Ken, hopes to use this world-spanning device to contain the all-powerful McCann crystal, which is here. Gambit asks Deathbird if they should reconsider their plan to steal the crystal, feeling the odds are heavily stacked against them, but she insists they must do this and have no other choice. Their ship is attacked, and Deathbird promises the Starjammers will keep D'Ken's forces busy while she, Gambit, and his team seek the McCann crystal, and the Externals are quickly attacked by ground troops stationed there. The mutants are more than capable of battling these soldiers, as they remind the team of fighting the Infinites back home. Gambit and Lila leave the battle to Sunspot, Strong Guy, and Jubilee, so the two heroes can focus on stealing the crystal with Deathbird. Finding it in a short time, Gambit is surprised to see the crystal is now 3 stories tall, but Deathbird reassures him that even a sliver of the crystal contains as much power as its whole. Suddenly, Lila is pulled into the crystal entirely. Gambit panics and dives in after her, and Deathbird follows them in. They encounter a small being named Joff, who warns them the entire universe is about to be destroyed. He takes them to D'Ken and Lila, who are frozen, transfixed, staring at a red light. Deathbird also becomes frozen when they get close to it, as these three would all take the power from the crystal without giving anything in return. Joff explains the nature of the Macran crystal as a nexus point between all matter and antimatter. It must remain intact or all of reality will be annihilated, as the crystal preserves the barrier between these two fundamental but oppositional forces of reality. The strange little being confirms everything Bishop said was true, and that the timeline was altered such that the Macran crystal was never saved by the Phoenix Force in the original timeline. This is having a cascading effect on the rest of the multiverse, which will eventually lead to the destruction of all known forms of reality. Gambit is initially overwhelmed by this information and doubts himself with such enormous stakes at hand. Joff, a guardian of the crystal, is unable to act on it himself, but feels Gambit has it in him to steal a sliver of the crystal, use it to send Bishop back in time, and save everyone else. Outside, the externals are attacked by Gladiator, with Richter in tow, and the three remaining mutants realize they are in trouble. Shortly after, though, Gladiator turns into glass when he gets too close to the crystal, while the externals are pulled into the artifact with Richter. Gambit is able to retrieve the crystal while his team watches on, but as Joff explains, it requires a sacrifice to do this. Giving up the only thing Gambit truly values, Remy leaves behind his love for Rogue, and the team emerge from the crystal with Deathbird and Duquesne. Lila begins to teleport them back home, but Sunspot sadly has absorbed too much energy from this battle and elects to stay behind and die. Galaxies away, Holocaust is confronted by a vengeful Blink in his fortress. Remarking on the damage she caused here, Apocalypse's son is impressed, and he gloats over having killed Sabretooth. Blink attacks and manages to drop him in a vat of genetic material. Nearby, the other X-Men battle the Infinites, while Shiro and Wildchild free a number of survivors being held here. Morph comes across Blink during this battle just as Holocaust re-emerges and attacks them both. The X-Men regroup and manage to fight back against this powerful horseman, with Rogue ultimately pinning this monster down and pummeling the villain. He is just barely able to escape, nearly taking Rogue with him through a teleporter into Apocalypse's New York stronghold, but an Iceman manages to pull her back just in time. It is then that Rogue discovers a still healing Victor Creed. With Apocalypse's forces retreating back to his citadel, the gathered X-Men prepare for the final battle, with Rogue declaring an end to the Age of Apocalypse. Meanwhile, Colossus's team, posing as one of Sugarman's lackeys named Quietus, are discovered by the villain. Before the Sugarman can have them killed, a massive explosion rocks the power facility, caused by Shadowcat and Colossus. The team battles Sugarman's forces and quickly begins suffering casualties in this resulting conflict. However, Colossus is finally able to rescue his sister and manages to brutally injure Sugarman. The facility erupts into chaos. Knowing that Magneto's need for Illyana comes before anything else, Colossus orders Shadowcat to get the three of them out of here, leaving the others behind. Though he claims they will come back for his students later, they are left in a bad situation, with only Huss still left standing as she, the other students, and the rioting prisoners are overwhelmed by Sugarman's gruesome forces. Once Shadowcat gets Colossus and Illyana to a safe distance, she insists on going back for the others, but Peter refuses to risk his wife and goes instead. However, when he finds Husk, she is surrounded and overwhelmed. Colossus is frightened by this and decides not to help her, abandoning his students to their deaths. He joins with Katya and Illyana and coldly reports he could do nothing for the others. And even young Illyana can sense a rift growing between her brother and his disappointed wife. In the sewers beneath New York City, Dazzler and Exodus search for Magneto's son, Charles. They find the remains of Charles's robot guardian Nanny, but no sight of the boy. The young Charles was ultimately seized by Apocalypse himself after Strong Guy betrayed the returning Gambit and externals. He overwhelmed Jubilee and captured both Charles and the Macran crystal, delivering both to Apocalypse himself, while Apocalypse mercilessly executed Richter for failing to do anything of substance. Gambit and Lila Cheney barely survived this experience, only rescued by Dazzler and Exodus happening upon them. They promptly took the other two to be reunited with the rest of the X-Men. Not long after this, Apocalypse is outraged to learn Domino has failed to retrieve the mysterious new telepath. Though he vows to deal with that matter personally, for now he turns his attention to his captive Magneto, suffering badly under the despot's custody. Across the nation, Nathaniel lashes out against Mr. Sinister. The former Horseman is impressed by X-Man's tremendous power, but easily resists the boy's attacks, able to heal from any damage he's able to cause. Nathan briefly stands down as Mr. Sinister explains how he spent centuries waiting for the right DNA to create Nathaniel Grey. When he finally got a hold of the genetic code of Cyclops and Jean Grey, he was able to grow the boy at an accelerated rate. All in the hopes that finally someone will be strong enough to kill Apocalypse. Suddenly, Sinister is attacked by Sauron and Teresa, the last two survivors among Nate's friends, giving X-Man the opportunity to finally overpower his creator and mortally wound him. Realizing he will have to face Apocalypse sooner or later, Nate decides to say goodbye to his friends and go confront his destiny. Using his telepathy, the young mutant is able to detect Magneto falling to the power of Apocalypse, and heads deep into the Tyrant's domain. There, he is shocked to run into both Cyclops and Jean Grey together. A psychic reaction between Jean and Nate provokes her into trusting the young man, recognizing their familiar bond even if she doesn't quite understand it. The three wish each other well as the two parties go their separate ways. Over in Avalon, Nightcrawler, Damask, Mystique, and Switchback all stand over Wade Wilson's now headless body. Kurt asks Damask what Apocalypse will do now that his team has been defeated, and she admits she doesn't know. Switchback and Mystique survey the survivors and speak with Douglas, a young man and son of Destiny, whose linguistic abilities allow him to translate all speech between the refugees from all around the world who have come here. Not long after this, a young mutant living here with electric powers cries out as she has been possessed by Apocalypse's response, Amal Farouk, also known as the deadly and fearsome Shadow King. Mystique ruthlessly kills the possessed mutant, but Damask explains that won't work, and the Shadow King will just take a new host, or hosts. Many in the village cry out as they are possessed by Farouk, who announces his intention to destroy Avalon. Though Damask manages to drive the Shadow King out for a moment, he only goes on to possess Mystique, delighting in her shape-shifting abilities. Working together, Switchback, Nightcrawler, and Damask manage to damage Farouk's mind, but residual telepathic commands leave one mutant on the cusp of murdering Destiny. Doug dives in the way, sacrificing himself to save his mother. A saddened Destiny is moved by all of this, and finally agrees to go with Nightcrawler and work with Magneto to defeat Apocalypse and restore the timeline. At the pens, Alex Summers orders his team and Dark Beast to purge all the prisoners being kept here. Dark Beast and the Bedlam brothers voice their protests at this, but such concerns are meaningless, for these orders come from Apocalypse himself now that Sinister is gone. Nearby, and a little later, Jean Grey and Scott learn of this planned purge, when the Bedlam brothers confront the two. The brothers are reasonable enough that each side tries to talk the other down and not want to fight each other. Ultimately, the Bedlams agree that these killings need to be stopped, so they let Scott and Jean pass while promising to hold off the Guthries, who they hate anyways. Over in Heaven, Angel's club is assaulted by Infinites, intent on arresting Warren. Angel manages to fight back and escape, though is saddened by the knowledge that his life of running this luxurious club has been brought to a sudden end. Scott and Jean manage to reach the Brain Trust, the telepathic brains they use to keep the pens pacified and the entire citadel secure from psychic attack. The brains try to restrain their attacker, sentient enough to recognize they are in danger, so they disable Scott's optic beams and nearly overwhelm Jean. But, tapping into her incredible psychic abilities, Grey is able to overpower the Brain Trust and kill the psychic network entirely. Jean is left feeling strange, as she has never used that much of her telepathic power before. In the resulting debris, the Bedlam brothers find Summer and Grey, having taken down both Guthrie siblings themselves. Scott and Jean ask them to take out the facility's power next, which the Bedlams are more than ready to handle. With that, Jean and Scott are able to start evacuating prisoners. As things start to get out of control, Dark Beast decides it has become clear he needs to move on and prepares to leave. It is then that a furious Havoc confronts his brother. With Jean still weakened from her battle with the Brain Trust to help much, the energy of the Summers brothers collides. Their energies cancel each other out, so they resort to hand-to-hand combat, and Scott manages to knock Alex out. Scott refuses to kill his brother, and Jean says she is proud of him, which moves Cyclops greatly, as he has known little love in his life up until now. They lead the prisoners out of here in search of a better world. In the burning wreckage of the pens, Alex stirs, vowing to get revenge on his brother. In Europe, Weapon X uses a holographic projector to convince Gateway Apocalypse must be stopped. So Gateway tells the Human Council he will transport the human fleet to Apocalypse for a final confrontation. As the gathered forces prepare to move out, Donald Pierce attacks the command ship, and Brian Braddock betrays the human race on behalf of Apocalypse. Brian dies in the resulting skirmish, double-crossing Pierce in one last attempt at redemption. Meanwhile, Carol Danvers, altered and revived by Donald Pierce's technology, attacks Weapon X. She is soon downed and begs for death, which Pierce, injured and going crazy thanks to Brian's attack, happily obliges and stabs her in the back. In response, Logan kills Donald just as Gateway is finally able to teleport the human fleet into Apocalypse's domain. At the consecrated Temple of the Magi, erected upon what was once known as Quebec City, Apocalypse's worshippers prepare to ritualistically sacrifice Bishop. Suddenly, however, the air turns frigid, and Storm arrives on the scene. With a gust the strength of a hurricane, she blows the Magi away and mounts a rescue of Bishop. Meanwhile, Banshee and Quicksilver work their way deeper into the temple in search of a critical target. Jamie Madrox, the original Multiple Man from whom all Magi are derived. Jamie by now has long gone mad due to the strain of his powers being used like this and genetic alterations made by the Dark Beast, so he welcomes the sight of the X-Men in the hopes they will finally release him from this tortuous existence. In Westchester, the rest of the X-Men find Iceman, who informs them that Magneto and Charles have been captured. Colossus, Shadowcat, and Liliana also arrive on the scene, telling the others of what happened to them. The group goes into the tunnels in search of Magneto and his son, finding Gambit and the others who were down here. In a rage at the loss of Charles, Rogue physically attacks Remy. Back in the ruins of Quebec, Quicksilver and Banshee hesitate about what to do with Jamie, when they are suddenly attacked by Abyss, who has managed to recover from his last encounter with the X-Men. Banshee demands Quicksilver flee with Madrox while he dives into the villain with his full sonic might. As a result, Apocalypse's minion is torn apart, and the temple begins to collapse. Quicksilver rushes off with Jamie, and Multiple Man is able to use what little power he has left to recall the Magi into him, killing Madrox but saving Storm and Bishop in the process. Back at the X-Mansion, the others manage to calm Rogue down as Pietro, Storm, and Bishop return. Sabretooth asks what they should do next, and Quicksilver says they need to recover the Macran Shard, Magneto, and Charles. Today is the day Apocalypse must fall. In London, thousands of desperate humans wait to board Mikhail's ship, hoping to accept his new offer that they be augmented into becoming mutants themselves. Doom and the humans that came with him have been taken prisoner, and are forced to watch helplessly as the machines begin to brutally work on Tony Stark. Nearby, Matt Murdock watches over a screaming empath, Mikhail's experiment at elevating humankind into mutant supremacy. The vast majority of participants in this project die, rejecting the required implants, and instead these people are coldly used to harvest organs. Murdock begins expressing doubts about all of this. Outside, what remains of the High Human Council convenes in the ruins of Big Ben. They know they must put a stop to this madness. Attending this meeting is Mikhail himself, who uses the riots outside he is secretly causing with Empath to justify the occupation. However, the humans do have some plans in motion. Though Stark dies in response to Mikhail's brutal experimentations, special feedback loops were placed in his artificial heart, temporarily disabling Mikhail's ship. The freed humans are able to revive Tony Stark and arm themselves, staging a massive uprising against Mikhail. Donald Blake confronts the Horsemen just as his ship begins to fall from the sky. Mikhail calls in one of his strike forces, elite soldiers that make up his personal guard, and orders them to kill the High Human Council. However, Victor Von Doom stops this just as, on board the damaged ship, Matt Murdock comes to his senses and frees Empath. With the city's population no longer under his control, things quickly spiral into chaos. In the resulting battle, Donald Blake manages to knock Mikhail out of the Big Ben Tower and both plummet to their deaths. During this, the seawalls come down, and more Apocalypse reinforcements arrive. This convinces a traitorous Bruce Banner to make a deal with the surviving humans. He helps them seize control of the approaching craft, and the survivors then use these vessels to leave Earth entirely, going out into space in the hopes of finding a better home among the stars. Shortly before this, Magneto suffered badly under the captivity and watchful eye of Apocalypse. The confident Ansaba Nur reveals to Eric they have set a trap for the X-Men who will undoubtedly come here in an effort to rescue their leader. Magneto denies his team would take such a risk, but Apocalypse informs him they will have no choice. The Tyrant reveals he has learned about the altered timeline after Shadow King discovered it within Bishop's mind when they had him in captivity. So Apocalypse has obtained the Macran Crystal Shard to ensure the X-Men will have no chance of altering history and will die trying to get the crystal back. In spite of Apocalypse's confidence, Magneto knows Ansaba Nur's rule is crumbling around them. Outside, Angel fights through Apocalypse's forces, finding in Karma he regretfully witnesses die in his arms. Nearby, the X-Men arrive, reunited with Nightcrawler as the gathered mutants begin their final battle, attacking the pens. They are surprised to find the area abandoned and an injured Dark Beast, who informs them of the revolt that occurred here. Not far from this, Jean Grey and Scott Summers lead the freed prisoners to New Jersey, where they hope to escape Apocalypse's clutches. Flying above, Angel manages to destroy the energy shield around Apocalypse's fortress, at the cost of his own life. This allows Nathaniel Grey to fly right in, intent on confronting Apocalypse. Suddenly, the Shadow King cries out, as the entire Midwest of the United States has just been bombed into nuclear oblivion by the Eurasian forces, which have arrived from the Pacific. Apocalypse responds by pushing the Seawall forces across to Europe to counter with his own weaponry. With the conflict escalating rapidly, Apocalypse decides to kill Magneto and move on, when X-Man bursts in and attacks the Despot. Magneto recognizes the boy as the powerful new telepath Forge spoke of, and, now freed, the two prepare to take on Apocalypse together. Below, the X-Men charge towards the crystal. The Macran grows and glows as they approach, and Destiny sees visions of the altered timeline, confirming everything Bishop said to be true. Magneto, Holocaust, and X-Man then burst through the ceiling mid-battle. X-Men knocks their foe away, giving Magneto enough time to approach Illyana and explain that she must send Bishop back in time so they can recreate the better world. Realizing this would mean a world without her being captured by Sugar Man, she agrees to help, though Colossus protests, not wanting to endanger his sister. As the fortress begins to collapse around them, the X-Men rush to the crystal, defending it as they prepare to send Bishop through time. Outside, Jean Grey detects the deaths of millions on the west coast, and uses her powers to hold off the bombs falling here. She doesn't notice that high above, Weapon X, who was part of the attack fleet, has gone ahead to make peace here before the missiles come for the east coast. X-Man defeats Holocaust with relative ease, showing off his incredible powers and growing confidence in them. Meanwhile, the situation around the crystal is unraveling. Sugar Man, having come here too, realizes the situation is a losing one, and jumps straight into the crystal himself. Colossus, feeling they're going to die here no matter what happens, decides he will at least be at his sister's side for the end, at any cost. He charges towards her, straight through Iceman when Robert tries to stop his former companion, and shatters him. In response, Gambit blasts Peter. With Destiny's guidance, Illyana is able to send Bishop back in time amidst the chaos around them. The world erupts into nuclear warfare. Apocalypse contemplates the meaning of this, wondering if he failed to create a domain where the strong only survive. Instead, perhaps he strengthened them all, the weak along with the strong, and mankind and mutant kind were always destined to simply destroy each other no matter what he did. Magneto and Rogue burst in, ready for a fight, but Apocalypse is quick to reveal their son Charles being kept here by Strongman as a hostage. Outside, Jean is fatally blasted by Havoc as Weapon X approaches. Scott is dismayed at this, knowing that without Jean they're all about to die in nuclear fire, but Havoc is focused entirely on revenge. Before he can strike his brother down, though, Weapon X sneaks up behind Alex and kills the little fascist. The injured Jean dies before a saddened Logan and injured Cyclops. In the past, Bishop comes before Legion about to strike his own father down. As time runs out for the X-Men, Dark Beast teleports away from the conflict into the heart of the Macran crystal, though Pietro manages to sabotage the controls before it activates, leaving McCoy's fate unknown. Meanwhile, Colossus refuses to listen to his fellow mutants and continues to charge relentlessly towards his sister. Shadowcat steps in front of Peter, confident that his love for her will stop the man, so much so she doesn't use her intangibility powers. This proves a fatal mistake, and Colossus accidentally crushes his wife to death. In response, Gambit blasts the despondent Colossus again, this time rupturing his steel body. Peter falls, heartbroken and insensible. Illyana approaches her brother, and the man says goodbye before passing away, and Quicksilver races in to grab the young girl before she is hurt. Rogue easily defeats Strong Guy and retrieves her son, while Apocalypse manages to down Magneto briefly enough that the despot can make an attempted escape from this dying world, revealing he has another piece of the Macran crystal. However, it is at that point that X-Man finally finds Apocalypse and mounts an attack on the mighty villain. In the past, Bishop manages to fight off an older version of himself to tackle Legion, and forces David to psychically see what he's about to do to the timeline. Legion and Bishop then explode in a wave of psychic energy. As a result, Legion appears to be fatally wounded. Bishop holds him, telling David what a disappointment he all was, only for Bishop to disappear from existence, having undone his own reality. The timeline begins to restore itself, with the time-traveling X-Men from the Legion quest being returned to a restored present. The Charles Xavier and Eric Lenscher of the past lose all memory of this encounter, with only Gabby experiencing a faint sense of maternal loss. Legion appears to disappear from the timeline entirely. In the Age of Apocalypse, Magneto and X-Men blast the tyrant that destroyed this world. Though Holocaust joins the fray and nearly turns the tide against the two heroes, Magneto concentrates and with some effort manages to split Apocalypse in half, finally ending his monstrous rule. With only a minute left until the bombs fall on this location, Eric finds Rogue and informs her it is finally over. They affirm their love for each other and their son as the bombs fall and everything goes white.